Hey guys, welcome to today's video. I have a small emerald green Arborvitae in my hand. How old do you think this plant is? Like, how long do you think it's been since we rooted this? I'm not asking you that to try to impress you with how fast I've gotten it to this size. I don't know if it's impressive or not. But a question that I do get asked, well, I've been asked a few times, is how long does it take between propagating a plant and that plant being actually ready to sell? And that's a great question. I want to dive into that today with some of the particular plants that I propagate and that I grow here in our backyard nursery. Here is my dappled willow shrub in a trade gallon, ready to sell, ready to go size. So you guys have seen a lot about my dappled willow. Some of you bought some of these cuttings from my kids back in the winter. So let me show you exactly how this worked out. Now these two bushes here and here are dappled willows. I've shown you these plenty before. These will put on another 10 feet of growth during this growing season alone. So the one I just showed you in the pot is a 1-year-old plant. And if you'll remember, and I'll put a link to that video right here above my head, but these grow long canes, really long every season. They fill in this whole end of the house, and we propagate these just by cutting these canes off in the winter and sticking them in the ground. So let me show you those. And here's the bed where I stuck my dappled willow cuttings, and I stuck them in January or February. It doesn't really matter as long as you stick them in the winter while they're dormant. Just cuttings the size of a pencil or smaller, and just stick them directly in the ground. And there's 90 or 100 of them here. So these have been in the ground for about 3 months now, and they've grown to this size. We'll prune these off so they'll bush out more. And they've gone from just a few months to this size. They'll stay here all season, continue to grow. I'll dig them up next winter when they're dormant, and then they'll be this size. So this time last year, this size, or this particular willow, was just a little cutting, just starting to grow like the ones I just showed you. So one growing season is all it takes for the dappled willow to get to sell ready size. And this is one of my blackberry plants. We sell a ton of these. We propagate these right off of our back fence back here. I've shown you guys how to propagate triple crown blackberries. It's a thornless blackberry variety. And this time last year, or probably last summer, we began propagation on this. These things propagate in just a couple of weeks. Takes almost no time to root them at all. But these are also a 1-year, 1-season project, start to finish. In fact, you can do them faster than that. You can root these and sell them in about 8 to 10 weeks from the time that you root them. But these have all overwintered here in our yard. We know that they're going to be tough and survive for people. Feel real good about selling them to people after a year. But the dappled willow was one example, and the blackberry is an example of a 1-year propagation plant that we do in our backyard. And this is one of our Hosta varieties that we sell a ton of, and they're super, super easy to propagate. It's called Night Before Christmas is the variety name. And this particular small Hosta here was just a tiny, tiny division that we made last year. Now, that might actually be sell ready this year in my trade gallon pots, but I don't have it potted up into that. And what I'm going to do is just put it in a pot and keep it for another season. But certainly in another full growing season, it will be this size. And the next size we have a plant, the next time we have a plant sale, this will be going home in someone's trunk. This is a beautiful plant. It has another year of growth on it beyond this. So from the time you divide hostas, if you're doing small divisions like I do, if you do them larger, it'll take 1 season less. But it takes about 2 seasons to go from a really small division to this. And your mileage may vary a little on that depending on variety, because some varieties grow faster than others. But at least in our backyard, the way we do it and with the varieties that we have, that's about what you should expect. Okay, and this is an emerald green Arborvitae, and the same things that are true for the emerald green are going to be true for the green giant, which obviously you guys know that I deal with those a lot. But the emerald green Arborvitae, this one would have been in propagation this time last year. So a year ago, this would have had no roots. During the growing season last year, it would have fully rooted and put on a little bit of top growth here. This is a really nice rooted cutting, by the way. And I potted these in these pots this spring, or before spring even came, very, very late winter. And I'm going to leave it in this pot, and it's just going to grow in this pot all season, or most of the season. And by next spring, we can expect it to be this size. So from rooted cutting in 1 year to this in the 2nd year. So after 2 full years, you would have this. But from this was a rooted cutting here 2 full growing seasons ago. So really 2 years. This is going into its 3rd season, just to be clear, on how long you can expect something like this to take. All right, this is a tray of silver dollar hydrangeas. You know, I can't do a video without talking about hydrangeas. So let me pull one of these plugs out here. These would have been in the propagation late spring, last summer. Here we go. And here's one of these plugs. And now I realize it's just one single straight stem, but you can see its root ball there. It's a really nice looking plug. And this particular plug just needs to be pruned. It needs to be cut off right there, and I will do that very soon, and we'll use the top of this as a cutting, or 2 cuttings, or whatever. We'll use this for propagation. This is why you use your own cuttings off of your own starts for propagation. You just have an endless supply of plants that way. But anyway, you start out at the end of season 1 with this. Then the next step is going to be something like this. Now, this one's actually had an additional growing season, because this is a plant that last year was really a runt, barely rooted at all. So last season it just sat in this, but you can expect your plant to go from that single stem plug to this in another full growing season, or really even a little bit more than this. And by your 3rd growing season, which is 2 full years after propagation, going into your 3rd year, you're going to have a silver dollar hydrangea that's this size. This is in a 3-gallon pot, and in about another month, this will be about this tall. Yeah, I love living in a neighborhood. It'll be about this tall, and it'll be flowering out, and I'm going to sell these big 3-gallon hydrangeas for $19 each this year, which is a big price, but they're a big plant, and they're going to be awesome, and people are going to get a steal on them for that. So about 3 growing seasons. You can cut that down to 2 growing seasons by doing a little additional fertilization and having a little bit better start with your plugs than I had on these last year, and selling them at a little bit smaller than this. But 2 to 3 growing seasons, depending on how big you want your plants to get, for a paniculata hydrangea like Limelight, or like Silver Dollar or Phantom, or some of those types. And the last plant that I want to show you is one of my coral bells. These are super popular perennial plant. As you can see, huge color, and these are 2 different varieties, but they grow at about the same rate. And this is a caramel coral bells. Now, I got these in last October, basically just in time to keep them for a few weeks before they went completely dormant. And this winter, these didn't do anything. I covered these with plastic out here in a small low tunnel little hoop, and this spring these have just exploded in size. I mean, they were about this size when I put them in here in these pots, in these little 3.5-inch pots last fall, and they've exploded into this. And I'm going to leave these in here in these pots for a few more weeks, but they're already outgrowing these pots. But by this time next year, this coral bells this size will be a coral bells that's this size. Again, I realize this one's red and this one's caramel. They're 2 different plants. I get it, but they're going to grow at about the same rate. So like most of the plants that I deal with, coral bells are really about a 2-year turnaround time. You can sometimes figure out a way to do it a little quicker than that on various plants. If you get them started early enough in the season, if you fudge a little bit here or there, sell them a little bit smaller as your finished product. But most of my plants that I deal with are kind of a 2 to 2.5 growing seasons proposition. And the reason that people want to know how long does it take to grow this plant or that plant is what they really want to know is how long does it take for me to start making money growing and selling plants in my backyard. And that's a great question. And you can buy in plants that are bigger than the ones that I buy in. But part of the fun of this, and what I really enjoy about this, is the actual process of growing. Ultimately, we are all trying to sell them, of course, but growing the plant up, propagating plants, that's what this is really all about for me. And it's really, you know, you just got to have some patience in working with plants. This is not ever going to make you a ton of money quickly. You know, it takes time to get everything going. But I hope this video today has been helpful in just giving you some ideas with a few of the plants that I grow and how long it takes to grow them from a little plant to a ready to sell plant. So guys, if this is helpful to you, won't you do me a favor, hit the like button down below. Apparently that helps with the algorithm, and watch my next video. I appreciate y'all tuning in every week. I love y'all, and I will see you on the next one.